why aren't we putting more of our banksters in jail like other countries? Iceland just arrested 2 guys for bringing down their banks, even though what they did was technically legal.
Well, I think everyone who breaks the law should suffer the penalties under the law. But if they haven't broken the law, then, of course, they shouldn't suffer the penalties under the law. I mean, you and your friends might disagree with that and might want to just march in there and grab them and incarcerate them or string them up or
No, I think we should change the laws.
You want to do that.
I think we should immediately change the laws, and I think that we should also be taxing these guys. I mean, the average income of the top 10 Wall Street banksters is $2 billion a year, and the average tax paid is 17% because you only pay 15% on dividends and interest, which is how they take most of their money. That's wrong.
Let me give you some facts here. In 2007, according to official IRS data, the top 1% of income earners paid more in federal income tax than the bottom 95% combined. That was before Barack Obama was even elected. That was before any of Barack Obama.
That was before the bubble burst.
Yes, and that was before the bubble burst.
But it doesn't matter, Peter. The top 1% earned more owned more wealth than the bottom 90%. The top 1% are taking more income than the bottom 50%.
I have the facts on that, too. I have the facts on the top 1% of income earners paid 40.4% of all federal income taxes. They earn 22% of the income, so they pay almost double.
You are making the classic example of liars don't figure, but excuse me, of figures don't lie, but liars can figure. You're trying to pretend to our listeners that the only taxes that anybody pays are income taxes. And if I may correct you, sir, respectfully, the average working person is paying a hell of a lot more, even if they're paying nothing, even if they are paying nothing. Even if they're not paying a damn cent in income tax, they're paying more in taxes than these billionaires on Wall Street who are paying a maximum of 15% on their dividends and income and not paying one penny because they've exceeded $106,000 towards Social Security and on and on it goes. They're not paying sales tax because most of the things they're not buying, they're putting their money in Swiss banks. I'm sorry, Peter, I'm not going to let you filibuster me. You cannot conflate income taxes with taxes.
You have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't conflate income taxes with anything. You went on about how they don't pay any taxes, and I just proved to you the top 1% pay more in federal income taxes than the bottom 95% combined, and you're not admitting that you were wrong and you made a disgracefully stupid statement. So please admit that and be honest.
If you want to only identify federal income taxes?
No, I don't want to do that.
Well, that's what you're using. You're using the IRS tax tables.
People to not have to pay.
Those are federal income taxes.
In the past. I want to change the law.
Most Americans don't pay federal income taxes, Peter.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And that's why your numbers are nonsense.
That's not why. That's why the numbers are right. That's why the numbers are right and you're wrong. Because most people don't pay any federal income taxes. How confused can you be?
You think they're paying no taxes?
To talk about this stuff. Actually.
You think the average guy?
You're so poorly confused. You shouldn't even be allowed. The top 1% pay more in federal income taxes. The bottom 95% combined. And you're trying to tell me that's irrelevant?
Are you trying to tell me, Peter, that the top 1% are paying more in sales taxes than the bottom 90%?
What'd you say?
Are you trying to tell me that the top 1% are paying more in sales taxes than the bottom 90%?
Did I say that?
Are you trying to tell me that the top 1% are paying more in Social Security taxes than the bottom 90%?
Did I say that?
Are you trying to tell me that the top 1% are paying more in any kind of consumption tax, in property taxes than the bottom 90%?
So the income taxes are completely irrelevant?
My point is that income taxes are only one piece of the puzzle.
95% combined is completely irrelevant.
When you use those Rush Limbaugh statistics, which work just fine for Rush with his $400 million, $400 million contract. When you use those statistics, you are misleading people.
No, I'm not. I'm not misleading people. I'm giving you the facts. I'm sorry that you find the facts misleading, but those are the facts. And you're going to have to live with them. You can make believe while you're on your show they don't matter. But
Peter,
in the rest of the world, you're not going to be able to impose
during the Eisenhower administration, after you made about $2 million a year in today's dollars, you paid 91% of your income after that $2 million in taxes. And so most people bothered not to take it. And that's why CEOs only made 30 times what their janitors made, because they thought, well, I'll just keep it in the company. And during that decade and the decade following it, when we maintained that over 50% tax rate, we had the strongest growth in the history of the United States during those 3 decades. when the taxes averaging 3.2% GDP growth, when taxes dropped under Reagan, we dropped below 3.1% average GDP growth per decade, and we've never recovered. Are you trying to tell me that the top tax rate on millionaires and billionaires of 36% right now, and the top tax rate on most of the guys who have figured out how to pay their taxes as dividends and income of 15% is somehow a good thing for America?
Well, that's what we are telling people that the Democrats want to do, is bring back the 91% income tax rate.
I certainly do.
And that can work. That can work.
It built America.
If we bomb all our industrial competitors.
So you're saying that in the 1950s and the 1960s and the 1970s, we were a helpless, hopeless industrial country. We didn't have any growth.
I think that if you want to offer the 1970s as a model for economic policy, you should not be allowed to talk about it.
The decade of the 1970s, we had GDP growth of 3.1%. We were doing just fine.
The 1970s was one of the worst economic performance in history, and anybody who wants to go back to that should have their head examined.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll have my head examined. The ACRU.org, Peter Ferrara.
You should.